Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. Got a different backdrop than I normally do for my videos. Thought I'd showcase my other system, which is the Wisdom Audio Adrenaline M50s. It's got a Macintosh amp on the upper planar modules and then a huge Emotiva amp. It's an active crossover. You need 4 channels of amplification and a big Emotiva high current amp on the lower modules. And let me tell you, a lot of people think I bought them just for the planar line source nature of the presentation. These bass modules, which are effectively steel box subwoofers, are still to me the best sounding bass of any floor standing speaker, and in many cases beat even the REL 25 in terms of just impact and what I prefer in bass. With an active crossover and the amp going straight into it, and it's a traditional AB amp, not the digital amps that you see on subs, huge benefit. But as you're probably also hearing, the reason I don't feature a lot of videos here and do listening tests and critical stuff, this room is very echoey. I've got the glass doors here, back in there I got more glass. It's an open family room. It's not conducive to critical listening, and it needs the treatments that I featured in the previous video. My friend that has the YG 2.3s and Avid gear, those acoustic curtains would do wonders in here. I just haven't gotten around to doing it, and it's more of a family area, not a big deal. But you can tell the issues here, and that's what is kind of a macro issue, and a point I wanted to quickly make is that don't do like I've done here, overkill gear for the room. A lot of people just worry about mixing and matching gear and think that that's, you know, the way to go, and put it in a room that's really not even commensurate with the quality of gear you got. So make sure you kind of consider both things, because you can hear in some of these videos online, echo everywhere, and you can tell the person put too much gear in for the quality of their room, or not enough attention paid to their room. Which piggybacks on the purpose of today's video, which I went over to 3MA Audio, the Houston dealership here, to record the same tracks that I've been filming from the Florida Audio Show, those 3 tracks that I've been highlighting on different systems, the Rockports, the My System, and others, and at the show. And I wanted to do them on the MBL101es that they have and the Extremes. And while I was there though, I realized they said that they decided to do some modifications to their upstairs room, and they couldn't get room treatments to treat for the bass traps. They had to buy an EQ, which is, and they're a new dealer for that DS speaker product to make what is in that room. I should have told you this at the start, but MBL101es with a 6-pack of REL Carbon Special REL subs. And it's very tough to make those two. You can't get the REL stack too close to the MBLs to impact that omnidirectional. But also in the room, excuse me, that they don't have any bass traps. They've sold out of almost all their room treatments, and they're back ordered several months. So the only solution right now, and based on how well it worked at my friend Doug's house in the video that I featured with him putting in his REL 25, they decided to go ahead and buy and become a dealer for that DS speaker crossover anti-node product that helps mate a sub to your main speakers. And it's more of a set it and forget it, simpler setup than the Dirac and the mini DSP SHD that I featured in previous videos. But go ahead and look at both videos in my past, from my Doug setup with the REL 25 and my video with the mini DSP SHD, to see which one may be applicable to you if you want to go this route. But you're going to see firsthand, like I like to show in these measurements. You can prove this stuff to you firsthand, but I'm going to show you measurements before and after what they saw. And then I've been up in that room, and really those subs could not even go past 1 notch on the volume, and it was still overloading everything. So this cured a lot of those problems and made the room sound so much better. And the equipment already was over $100,000, probably closer to $150,000 system up there. $2,000 invested in 2 of these DS speaker anti-node products, one for each channel, made a huge improvement. I mean, if you're there, you can go to their store and hear for yourself, because they can easily turn it on or off. Or you can buy these, try it for yourself. I'm sure there's like a money back guarantee, some 30-day trial or whatever. You can see all this stuff for yourself, but you're going to see the measurements and you're going to hear the tracks. And let me tell you, $2,000 to improve a $100,000+ system is more than any other tweak you can imagine. So again, I like to do in these videos, dispel myths in the hobby and not just stick to, you know, easy picking stuff on tweaks and snake oil stuff. I'm talking about more macro level dogmas that are really not applicable anymore. When it comes to DSP and mating speakers to a sub, there really is almost zero downside, and whatever downsides they are more than offset by these upsides, as you're about to hear. So without further ado, let me take you over to 3MA and see for yourself.
Okay, so today's guest is Lady Gaga in the video. I'm going to do some DS speaker integration with some REL subs upstairs at 3MA, so come with me. Let's surprise Luis here.
With, without, in, out, top, bottom, flipped.
So we got one for each channel.
One for each channel, yeah.
Where'd you put them at? Is that these down here?
Yeah, they're down there.
The DS speakers. So this is one for each channel. So the issue was mainly that when you have such a huge stack, it was overpowering. Even at the lowest volumes, it didn't give us a lot of ways to tweak things. Just one notch could be too much with this stack and the MBLs in the traditional high-level inputs and all that. So,
and all that has to do with this room, and we're ordering some room treatment.
Yeah.
Some additional room treatment so we can control a lot of that energy. But in the meantime, while we get the treatment, we'll do some DSP and corrections and see how it goes.
Yeah, so you use the mic like we did at Doug's house. Did some before and after. It's a pretty standard microphone. Similar to what you get when you do Dirac and whatnot. Each one will come with a calibration file. And what else are we using here? We're using the preamp from MBL.
The N20, a render N20, and the CD, Audio Research CD player as an external DAC.
Gotcha. So yeah, that's a top loading one, but we're using it as a DAC here. MBL Noble line amplification. And these are Carbon Specials. They have a passive radiator down at the bottom. It's down firing. I actually have a video. I don't know if I ever released it. Just one of these on the ground was moving. So you got to make sure your feet and these things stay stable. And also if you're going to do a stack, make sure you do these straps. Or literally these can fly off the stack.
Like they do at Steve's.
Oh, they do that at Steve's. Okay. Actually going out with Steve tonight, supposedly. Gonna call him. All right, we'll take a look at the measurements in a second.
Back orders. All right, so here is actually with the bypass on. I don't know why it's a little bit more reverberant. You need more light here?
This is fine, I think it's good.
So the green is with the digital signal processing on, and the purple is without. For whatever reason, at 63 hertz, with it on, there's a big reverberant at 63 hertz. Although I can't hear it, but it's what it's measuring. Now here's where you look at the benefits. Oh, that was distortion, but there's a peak here and a peak here, and those got, you know, more or less controlled now with just the DSP. This is how it looks, the wave. So a lot cleaner, a lot less spikes, not too crazy like it was before here and here.
Right.
So a lot better measurements. And this is that's just having it on bypass. And let's see here. This is originally without anything in line with the signal path going to the amp. So you'll see the peaks again.
Yeah, pretty
and how DSP is correcting those room modes that we're planning on correcting again with room treatment in the near future come May. But in the meantime, why not play with a little DSP and make it sound better?
Is that the automated DS speaker doing its automated correction? So nothing manual.
Correct. That is its own correction. There is a dip right here, right above 100 hertz, but it's not that significant in comparison to like the large peaks it had.
Right.
And now, I haven't heard it yet, but I'm getting ready to play some tracks and listen with the DSP on and off, and kind of see what the difference is. I mean, although measurement wise, it does look like it's going to be a big change.
Does the Carbon Specials all are at the lowest volume setting still?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Crossovers are different, but the Carbon Specials are probably right at the lowest possible setting.
Yeah, so when you do these setups, the high level, you're not cutting off what goes to the main speakers, so it can get a little heavy. So that's why the volume is way down on these, so you don't have too much overlap, even though the measurements are a little still high. But
6,000 watts of power.
Yeah, 6,000 watts of power. And then you can set the crossover at different points for each one in the stack. That's what REL recommends doing. So that can also change the amount of overlap and how much is being covered, and also change the measurements. But just letting DS speaker do its own thing, set it and forget it. And you kept the mic at one position, or did you move it around?
Just at one position, and I configured it as stereo.
Okay.
And we can go through the configuration steps and run it so everybody can see what It's not difficult. You can go in and fine tune your own curve. In fact, you can set some parametric EQs and adjust some of the curves that it's
right. You can go in and manually
yes.
take out those peaks even more if you wanted. And then you could do different mic positions instead of where your head is. You could do like Dirac does, 1, 2, 3, 4 around there.
Now, what a lot of people don't understand, like they want to see something completely straight, but based on experience, that doesn't sound good. Right. Human hearing starts tapering off on the bass side, so a little bit of a hump on the lower frequencies is always more desirable. And
there isn't even a lot of content when you get down to the 20 hertz.
Correct.
And stuff.
Yeah. So having that hump is pretty normal. In fact, if I take out the subs and just leave the speakers itself, I think I have. Oh, here we go. This is a graph with just the speakers themselves. There's a small dip here which gets corrected with the subwoofer.
And that would probably be noticeable. That's significant of a dip. For certain music that hits that spot, you would notice.
Yeah, this dip is...
that's probably what Doug had.
This is at 40 hertz.
Yeah.
Based on the listening position and where the speakers are placed. And with the sub, it gets corrected, as you saw. Here we go with the... Okay. So this is... with subs over here and with no subs. Obviously they were recorded at different levels, but you can follow the waveform and see how with the subs it makes it a little more coherent and more full range sounding. and obviously correcting those huge peaks that we had with. Here, I'll add another one with the 6-pack. And well, actually, this is actually even went out of the. Here we go. So this is with the 6-pack with no DSP, 6-pack with DSP, and then this is just the speaker itself. Which the speaker itself on its own has great bass. That's not to say that it doesn't play great bass, but when you adding a sub, it just adds to the excitement. You can hear a lot more fullness in the sound. It increases soundstage. I mean, it adds a lot of emotion to the music for sure.
Well, yeah, and especially, I mean, you can get a lot of speakers to show that they have low bass when you're doing a test tone. But when you're playing actual music and playing it loud, that's different than a test tone.
Yeah.
So that's where don't get freaked out by peaks low in the bass. The other thing to remember is that these measurement mics are not like your ears. This is in one spot wherever you take it, behind your hearing, where your head is. A little 6 inches one way or the other, a few inches could change that whole readout. So that's why you have to combine this with listening tests too, to see how severe things are even with these corrections. But clearly the DSP has got us in a much better position theoretically.
And then here I did a reading, just the left speaker and the right speaker. There is slight differences between them, but most of the
that's pretty darn
mostly
close,
is pretty close, yeah.
Especially for having a window wall.
Yeah,
And
the here you'll see the one that has this peak here on the mid bass is because you have that big mid bass driver of the MBL very close to a window.
right.
So I mean, if we close the curtains, this peak will die down a little bit, but it'll still exist just because of a window versus drywall or a wall. So those are really interesting things to, when you're doing room measurements, kind of see and understand what's happening and how moving or room correction or room treatment can affect how a frequency response is captured by a microphone. And then when you're listening to music, you can also tell the difference as well.
Yeah, for those that have any biases against DSP, I can just say these things are pretty transparent. In fact, my friend Doug uses one of these. All of his signal goes through it, including his analog and his analog tape, and he's noticed no degradation. In fact, the improvement that these products make to the frequency actually improves things. So he always keeps it engaged, even on his analog content. Doesn't mind this doing digital correction. So when you're investing over $100,000, it makes sense to at least try to use these DSPs to mate it best to your room. You may have spent $100-something grand on the equipment, but a lot of people don't have $100 grand in their room. And even here at the dealership, they're waiting on backlog on some room treatments for bass. So here's another way to get closer and refine things at a very modest cost. These DS speakers are what, $1,000 around?
Less than 1,000. Yeah.
Less than 1,000. So again, this is just something that gets a bad rap in the industry, but we've now seen it at my friend Doug's house, in my system. They can make a noticeable difference. So I guess we'll do some listening tracks next. Okay, so you've seen in prior videos Art Novian acoustic panels and treatments, and some bass traps are coming that 3MA carries, but they also will do an analysis of a room for you. I'm going to show you guys that, which can be a big help, especially if you're not an expert, and even if you are an expert, it's good to have the actual makers of the room treatments to show you what they recommend in terms of for your room dimensions and all that fun stuff. So yeah. Unfortunately, when you have like an old house or something, there's always going to be wood floors that aren't perfect, windows that aren't perfect, and a co-space that's not a dedicated room. You're always going to have trade-offs. So having attractive room treatments and strategically doing the best you can, combined with DSP, can really make a huge difference. As I can tell you firsthand here.
All right, so this is, we took some room measurements like you saw previously that we did for the DSP for this customer's house. And they put together a 3D rendering of how everything looked based on the dimensions where the speakers were placed, where the subs were placed. And this is some of their room treatment that they're recommending. Here, sub traps in the corner, room treatment in the ceiling, which a lot of people forget, especially right before the listening position. Here's another perspective of, this customer has a fireplace here, and it's open, so they didn't put any sub traps on this wall, they put it on this wall. This is just open to the back, and this is the rendering with the highlighted portions of their recommended room treatment. And then the interesting thing is, as you see, they continue to treat the room even after the listening position. And here's a 3D view as well of what they're recommending. And then here they specify what type of treatment and fixture for each of the treatments they're recommending. The interesting thing is, this might be small, but here, let me see if I could zoom in a little bit. So these are some of the reverberants in that room, which is a very lively, very bright, very reverberant room. So the initial reading response that we sent to them, and then after the room treatment, what it would go down to based on their recommendations. So this is a very extensive analysis, based on what they recommend and what we sent them, and the room dimensions and where the speakers are placed and where the listening position is. And, it's just another level or another layer of the capabilities of things that we can do as a dealer for you guys when we're taking room treatments, when we're taking room response measurements, and how we can use those measurements to better improve the sound quality in your room.
Yeah, and go back up to the pictures again. Two things to point out. You almost don't even tell, go all the way up to the top, you can almost not even tell that these treatments are there. And in some cases, you could say it accentuates the room, giving an accent wall almost feel. The bass traps and the ceiling traps are almost invisible.
And these are glass, right? This is glass right here. So there's no real treatment that's being placed in the glass. But everywhere else, they're trying to prevent those reverberant reflections from the glass and trying to absorb them. So it's a combination of absorption and diffraction that is being used in this room.
And the people will probably put curtains anyway on those.
Correct.
So, and there are acoustic curtains. But the other macro point is, yes, that's probably expensive to have all those treatments. But considering if you're investing this kind of money in the gear, this is almost like silly not to do. Because you're never going to get the ceiling of the performance of your gear if your room is not treated properly. So, if you want to pay this kind of money for gear, that's great. If you want to hear the performance of this gear, then you're going to also need to budget for this. It just makes a huge difference. And then as well, DSP for fine tuning. All these things combined, I think, are like essential parts of every system. People often just try to get away with not doing this or not doing that. But, hopefully this video shows you that it's really all three are essential to getting the ceiling of performance possible.